Today, you'll learn some dog vocabulary so that you can talk to your dog in English. And we have a guest appearance from Coco, possibly the world's first podcasting dog. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza, Craig and Coco.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And this is Coco.
Thanks for joining us today, Coco. We're going to speak to you a bit later on, and we're going to have an interview and ask Coco some questions so that he can tell us about his daily life. And this idea is from Marcela from Argentina. Thank you very much, who recently contacted us. Thank you, Marcela, and telling us about her Yorkshire Terrier, Harry, who passed away recently. Well, let's listen to that section of the audio from Marcela.
I would like to get to know Coco. If Reza want to share Coco's adventure with us, I think he and our pets deserve an episode. If you haven't done it yet, have you?
So thank you for your idea. It's a really good idea. We're going to speak to Coco a bit later. But first, if you're a new listener, welcome to the podcast. Reza and I have been teaching for nearly 50 years, or around 50 years. We've been teaching English, and we're going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you doing, Reza?
I'm feeling fine. I'm very happy to be here with you and Coco, of course, on this fine day. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great to be podcasting again this week, and it's getting warm here in Valencia. We're now in May 2021, so the weather is warming up, which is lovely. Before we start speaking about dogs and dog vocabulary, I want to say a quick thank you to my friend Joffre from Ecuador, who recently interviewed me for his podcast called Amigos Learning Languages. And Joffre has a wonderful podcast in which he mixes English and Spanish. And I was on his podcast as a guest with an American man called John. And we spoke about the verbs tomar, llevar, hacer, and the confusion with take, carry, and make. So thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast, Joffre. And if you want to listen, go to Amigos Learning Languages, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Now, Craig, we hope our listeners can learn as many words as possible in English and remember them. But how many words can dogs learn? Any idea?
Well, I know if you say sit, they might sit, or come, or fetch, they might bring something to you, but I don't think they know more than maybe 10 or 12 commands.
That's what I thought until I researched a little bit. And apparently, the average dog, the typical dog, can learn 165 words.
165 words?
That's
wow.
right.
That's incredible.
Including signals. And the super dogs, those who are in the top 20% of dog intelligence, can learn even more. They can learn up to 250 words.
And do these super dogs have a cape and a uniform like Superman? They fly around the park?
I haven't seen one go into a telephone booth to get changed into their cape. I haven't seen that yet. Not that I know of.
That's impressive, though. 250 words. So Coco probably has a wider vocabulary than my sister's Spanish.
It's possible.
Amazing. Well, let's start by looking at some vocabulary connected to dogs. Now, what does Coco do, Reza, when he wants some food?
Well, this is very important for all dogs, and Coco is no exception. He likes to beg for food and for other things, but above all, for food, he begs, B-E-G. He asks for things. He's got lots of ways of doing this. Most of them are non-verbal. Most of them are with gestures.
And if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you've probably heard him barking because Coco occasionally barks on the podcast. B-A-R-K. That word is a noun and a verb, to bark. It's a regular verb. So yesterday he barked, ed. And barking sometimes gets lost in translation when you're translating the noise of the bark from English to Spanish or Spanish to English, because in British English we'd probably say woof for a bark, or maybe bow wow. But what do Spanish speakers say?
As far as I know, Spanish speakers say wow wow, which is very similar but not exactly the same as bow wow. So it turns out that the dogs that speak English are a little bit more complicated. Instead of saying what twice, first they go buh, then they go what, bow wow. But, that's life. What can we say?
But would a Spanish dog barking understand an English dog barking?
That's a good question. I don't know. As long as the Spanish dog didn't use any subjunctives, possibly, yes.
And as the British one didn't use any phrasal verbs. Another sound that a dog can make is a whine. Now, I don't mean wine that you drink, the alcohol. I mean W-H-I-N-E. Also a verb and a noun. To whine is to make this sound.
That sound there was a whiny sound. So the adjective with a Y. Take away the E and add a Y. W-H-I-N-Y. Whiny.
Of course, people can whine as well. If I say to Razor, oh, stop whining, you're always complaining. That means he's constantly complaining and moaning about things. He's whining.
A similar word, but not exactly the same, is yap. Y-A-P, yap. Like wine, that's also a noun or a verb. And there can be an adjective. Also, like wine, just add a Y. Yappy. Y-A-P-P-Y, yappy. So, for example, sorry, Marcella, but it's true. Many Yorkshire Terriers are yappy dogs. I don't know if yours was. Maybe it wasn't. But they do have a reputation for that. They can be very nice dogs, very pleasant dogs. But they often yap. They make a sound which seems to be some kind of complaint or dissatisfaction with something. So it's not a specific concrete sound, but it's that sound that a dog makes to show that it's unhappy about something.
And it's also very common with smaller dogs rather than larger dogs, although Coco doesn't yap very much.
Virtually never. But I'm afraid it's true, Marcella, that Yorkshire Terriers do have a reputation of being yappy. Indeed, some people are yappy. Just like wine, you can say, oh, stop yapping. Like, stop complaining all the time. Don't be so yappy, you can say to a person also.
And if a human is doing a lot of strenuous exercise, exercising a lot, or doing anything that is physically exerting, then a human can pant, P-A-N-T, to pant. And dogs also pant very often when they're hot. And maybe you can tell me if this is true. When dogs are very hot and they open their mouth and they're panting, like that, is it because they're trying to cool down? Is their tongue out because they're trying to cool down the body temperature?
That's exactly right. Because, of course, dogs, contrary to popular belief, dogs do not sweat. They do not perspire. They're not physically able to. So if you think, oh, this is a smelly dog, it must be sweaty, you're quite wrong. It might be smelly, but it isn't sweaty because dogs don't sweat. Their version of sweating is exactly what Craig said. They open their mouths, they stick out their tongue, and that's how they cool down. Humans do that as well, a bit, but our normal way is to sweat and the liquid cools down our skin, of course.
When dogs are not very happy or they're feeling a bit aggressive, they growl, G-R-O-W-L, and it sounds a bit like this. It's very low, isn't it? It's from the throat, a growling sound. So growl is a noun and a verb. Does Coco ever growl What does he growl at?
Yes, Coco growls a lot. Yeah. Well, you can ask him later what makes him growl, but let me tell you, he does growl quite a lot. He doesn't whine much, he doesn't yap, but he does growl. Yeah.
Our next word is breed, B-R-E-E-D, also a verb and a noun, but this time it's irregular. So to breed is the infinitive and the past and past participle bred, B-R-E-D, the same pronunciation as pan, bread, but a different spelling. So breed, bred, bread. And to breed means to develop the line of a dog. So if you want little Cocos, then you put Coco together with a lady Coco, and then you have babies. So you can say that you have bred Coco. He has babies.
And if you do that as a profession, if you're a person who does that, who breeds dogs, you are a breeder. So a breeder is a person who works breeding dogs. Whereas a breed, if you use it as a noun, is the type of dog. So Coco is not a purebred dog, in fact. He is not only one breed. He is a mixture. He's not a purebred. He's a mongrel. A mongrel, M-O-N-G-R-E-L. A mongrel is more than one breed. It's sometimes used for people as well, but always in a very insulting way. Whereas for dogs, it's simply scientific. If it's not a purebred, it's a mongrel. But
it's a mixture.
It's a mixture. But if you say it to a person, you're probably trying to insult them.
And another word for purebred is pedigree, isn't it? You can say a dog has a pedigree, or it's a pedigree dog. And when I was young, I had a pedigree dog, a schnauzer, a miniature schnauzer, which is a German terrier. So that was a purebred terrier.
Now, a very important expression for people who have a dog is to take the dog out for a walk. For example, I take Coco out for a walk, or I take Coco out for walks 3 times a day. Or I could say walkies. Walkies is the...
Coco's jumping up and down in here now.
Coco. No.
Stop.
It's not
calm
walkies
down.
now, Coco.
Calm down.
Later. Oh, good boy.
Tranquilo.
Now, you see, when he hears the word walkies, for some reason, dogs, certainly English-speaking dogs, when they hear walkies, they react immediately. Walk doesn't quite affect them so much, but you say the word walkies, and it must be a really distinctive sound, and they respond immediately to that.
It's usually with quite a lot of intonation, isn't it? Walkies, walkies. When you take a dog for a walk, then you need to take the dog on a lead. If you live in the city, maybe not so much in the countryside, but a lead connects to the dog and allows you to control the dog and keep it close to you. So lead or leash, you might hear. Lead is L-E-A-D and leash L-E-A-S-H. Both of those are verbs and nouns. So a lead is the actual thing that you use, and to lead in Spanish you would say llevar.
Yeah, you're the leader. Yeah, so if you lead your dog, it follows you. But to leash doesn't exactly mean that. To leash means to put the dog on a leash or on a lead. In other words, in Spanish, it would be atarlo.
Yeah.
So that's to leash, to put it on the leash or the lead. Whereas to lead means that the dog's already on a lead and now you're using the lead to lead it.
And there's an idiomatic use of lead as well, because you can lead someone down the garden path. That does not mean you've put a lead on Reza and you're dragging him and pulling him down the path. No, you're tricking someone or you're giving them some information that's not true. Engañar. So you're leading someone down the garden path.
And the verb to leash has an opposite, to unleash. Put the prefix un to unleash. So that means to take off the leash. Let the dog free. So it's no longer under your physical control. So it can go where it wants. To unleash the dog. but it's often used metaphorically as well. You can unleash anything. For example, at the start of the Second World War, the Germans unleashed their full military power. So something powerful, potentially like a dog, I guess, is liberated. So military power can be unleashed, or evil can be unleashed, that type of thing.
Humans have hair. My hair's going a bit grey now, well, very grey. And at the moment, Reza has some hair on his face, some facial hair. He's growing a bit of a beard there, so we have hair. And dogs can have hair too. And what we usually say about a dog's hair is we say it's coat, C-O-A-T, like in Spanish, abrigo. So you can say that a dog has a shiny coat, for example. And we can also say dog fur, can't we, Reza?
Yes, F-U-R, fur. So you can use either the word hair or fur for a dog. But when I think of the word fur, for me, it kind of refers to all of their hair, so to speak. You know what I mean? My dog has a lot of fur. It's a furry dog. F-U-R-R-Y, the adjective. It has a lot of hair. It's a furry dog.
It's interesting the way you pronounce fur.
Oh, yeah, the Belfast way, yeah.
The Belfast way. So my pronunciation from the south of England is similar to words like turn or learn or burn or the past of to be, were. It's the sound, fur. And how do you pronounce it?
Fair. Yeah, it's a different vowel sound.
It's a different vowel sound, yeah.
And the adjective, furry.
And I would say furry. And you say more like fairy.
Yeah, a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And it's interesting, I was checking on the internet because dogs like poodles. What's poodle in Spanish?
I think it's caniche.
Caniche. Single coat dogs like poodles, we tend to say hair. Whereas double coat dogs that have a very thick coat, we tend to say fur. So I think it also depends on the breed of the dog as whether you'd say hair or fur, but both can be used.
I didn't know that.
Me neither.
It sounds right to me because for me, fur sounds like more hair than just hair. If it's fur, it's a lot of hair, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Two words which seem obvious to English speakers, but they're not so obvious to Spanish speakers, apparently, are the legs and paws of a dog. Because in Spanish, you don't really distinguish. From what I've seen in Spanish, whether I'm talking about Coco's leg or his paw, you call it pata in Spanish. You don't really distinguish. But in English, we do. Dogs have 4 legs and they have 4 paws. The paws are like the feet on their legs. But in Spanish, you just call it all pata. You don't really distinguish. But we do talk about dogs' legs.
And speaking of pronunciation, do you agree that the pronunciation of paw in the plural, paws, is the same as pausa, P-A-U-S-E, a pause in speech, for example?
Yes. He made a pause. Coco's pause. Yep.
Same pronunciation. We agree on that one. Did you hear about the dog who went into a saloon where the cowboys were drinking, but he was limping? This dog was limping. He limped into the saloon, and to limp means andar cojo, andar mal. So the dog walked into the saloon limping, and all of the cowboys went quiet. There was absolute silence. He ordered a drink at the bar, and the bartender said, "What do you want in here?" And the dog said, "I'm looking for the man who shot my paw."
I get it. The man who shot my paw in some parts of America, that's their pronunciation of pa, of daddy. Yeah, my pappy, my paw. Yeah.
I'm looking for the man who shot my paw. To continue, a dog's nose. Is this true that if a dog's nose is wet, it's healthy?
That's what they say.
Is it true?
Generally speaking, yes. It doesn't have to be wet, but it is accepted that it's a good sign.
So another word for a dog's nose is a snout, S-N-O-U-T. And other animals have snouts too. For example, a pig. A pig has a snout. It's like a long, protruding nose.
Now, an important thing for dogs that they should do, hopefully, is to wag their tail. I say hopefully because it's a sign that they're happy, of course. So to wag is to move from one side to the other. Coco, when he's happy, he wags his tail. Oh, that's it, Coco. Yeah, he heard me say his name. Okay, yeah, Walkie's later. Okay. He's wagging his tail again.
And something that Coco really likes when he's a good boy is treat. Treat is also a verb and a noun. You can treat your dog by giving your dog treats, treats, and they can be doggy biscuits. They can be other things that dogs really, really like. And I'm guessing that that's one of Coco's favourite words in English. What kind of treats do you give Coco?
It is his favourite word in English, yeah. We give him doggy biscuits, and also we like to vary other little delicacies we give him. Like he likes dried whole fish, like little anchovies, dried. You can buy this stuff in veterinary establishments. Also, he loves duck sticks. They make this thing which is a stick, un palito, made out of duck meat. He likes that.
He eats better than I do.
Oh, yeah. When you ask him later, you won't believe what he eats. By the way, I'm going to tell you the Spanish word for treat, because treat can have other meanings. For example, you treat an illness, right? To treat a patient is to give them attention.
Tratar.
But lowering my voice because if Coco even hears it, he'll go crazy. Treat in Spanish is chuche.
You can also use this verb to treat, apart from the medical meaning of it, is to pay for someone. So if I go out for lunch with Reza and Reza says, oh no, I'll pay the bill, then Reza treated me to lunch. So you can treat someone to coffee, treat someone to lunch, etc.
And it can be for a person, can't it, a treat, like something that you really like eating?
Yes.
You know, particularly, let's say, for children, you've been a good boy. Yeah, I'm talking about people now, not Coco. And your mum or dad might say, you've been a good boy. Look, we're going to give you a treat. We're going to give you a piece of chocolate cake because you've been a good boy.
It's a real treat for me, a piece of chocolate cake. There's another word you could use as a slang word for a dog, and that's mutt, M-U-T-T. What does mutt mean, Reza?
That is a slang word for a disliked dog, but it can also mean a mongrel. The original meaning is a mongrel, a mixture, but more commonly now just means a dog that people don't like. So it will often collocate with adjectives like horrible, horrible dog, a terrible mutt, an ugly mutt, that type of thing.
If your dog is very good, let's imagine the dog is sitting on your lap, you're watching telly, you might stroke your dog, S-T-R-O-K-E, or your cat, if you have a cat. So to stroke means to move your hand slowly over something like a dog or a cat, or over someone. You can stroke any animal, and you can stroke people as well, on the arm, for example. So stroke is a noun and a verb. Dogs are not always pets and used for pleasure. Dogs also work. For example, you can have a guard dog. A guard dog will be a dog that protects property. So it could be a house, it could be a factory, any area of land or a building that you want protected by a dog. That dog is a guard dog, G-U-A-R-D.
Another very important job that dogs do is as a guide dog. A guide dog for the blind. So I'm sure you've seen in the street blind people who, rather than leading the dog, are led by the dog because it's a guide dog. The dog guides them because they're blind.
And guide dogs are usually Labradors, aren't they? And I don't know why. Is it because they're the cleverest dogs, or is there a reason why guide dogs are usually Labradors?
I think they're clever, yeah, and they've discovered that they're very good at things like waiting at traffic lights, knowing when a situation is potentially dangerous, and they're also very sociable and very loyal. So that combination of characteristics makes them perfect.
I think a Labrador is my favourite breed. My favourite breed of dog is a Labrador. I think they're absolutely gorgeous dogs. If a dog works for the police, it's a police dog, and police dogs tend to be Alsatians. Well, Alsatian is the word we would use in British English. In American English, they're called German Shepherds. So Alsatians, German Shepherds are commonly, although not exclusively, police dogs.
Not exclusively indeed, because originally they're actually a herding dog. A dog used to control herds. Herd, a herd is a group of animals. So a German Shepherd is a type of sheepdog, but it also makes a very good police dog. So sheepdogs, there are many types, are dogs which look after herds of sheep.
And when you travel, do you remember that, traveling through airports?
Before coronavirus?
A long time ago, you may have seen dogs walking around your luggage and your suitcases sniffing. Sniffier, to sniff, SNIFF. And they are searching for drugs or maybe explosives, and they're called sniffer dogs because they sniff. Or maybe detection dogs. They're looking for illegal substances.
It shouldn't surprise us that dogs are used as sniffer dogs because many dogs' sense of smell is up to 700 times more sensitive than humans.
Wow.
700 times. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, their sense of smell is amazing.
If you're walking or hiking through the mountains and you get into trouble, you might need a search and rescue dogs. They do what the name suggests. They search, they look for missing people, and hopefully rescue you, get you out of a tricky situation. Now, my stereotype in my mind of a search and rescue dog is a St. Bernard in the Swiss Alps.
With some brandy around its neck, yeah.
That's right, yeah. They get you out of the avalanche, bit of brandy and you're okay, yeah.
They're also beautiful dogs, the St. Bernard dogs, yeah. Also, one thing we don't have on our list in the show notes, but it's just occurred to me, dogs are often used in the army, in bomb squads and as combat dogs. And if you watch, like I do, lots of series about the SEALs in America, the elite fighting forces of the US Army or the SAS, they often have a dog in the unit that goes into enemy territory as fighting dogs.
Yeah, fighting, and even I think a few are used in bomb disposal, aren't they?
Yeah.
They can do certain basic things to help defuse, to deactivate bombs. So they're very brave dogs.
I don't think they have much choice, but yeah, they are brave. They're kind of forced into it. Another use for dogs, therapy dogs. And I've seen this a lot on the internet where people have problems with stress or maybe depression, and they like to stroke dogs because I think it's been proved in studies that stroking a dog really does relax you, removes stress, and just makes you calmer. So they're used a lot in therapy as well.
Yes, and I did a little bit of internet research and I discovered that this is not a new thing. It's not new at all. The ancient Greeks were well aware of this, and they used dogs and cats and other things to help people recover from depression, from stress, all types of things. The ancient Greeks. And then it was a famous British nurse, because she was very revolutionary in many ways, Florence Nightingale. She really pioneered, she was the first person to discover the full potential of dogs to help mentally ill patients recover way back in the 1860s. So kind of the modern school of pet therapy goes back to her in the 1860s.
Moving on to some idioms and sayings with dogs, something that my mum used to ask for when she was alive every time we went to a Chinese restaurant was a doggy bag. A doggy bag. A bag for the dog. Now, we didn't have a dog, and that just made her feel more comfortable about asking for a really small portion of rice to take home with her. Oh, can I take this for the dog? No, it's for you, Mum. It's for you tomorrow for your lunch. So don't say it's for the dog. But if you do ask to take food home from a restaurant, you can ask for a doggy bag.
Now, Coco is on the floor there. He's asleep. I have a feeling it's not a good idea to wake him up. And that is why we have the saying in English, let sleeping dogs lie. To lie, to be on the ground. We say it because it's a fact, isn't it? A big, aggressive dog that doesn't like to be woken up, well, don't wake it up. Let sleeping dogs lie.
But it often means don't dig up the past. Things that have happened in the past, it's better to leave those things in the past. Imagine you lent a lot of money to your friend and your friend left the country and you see him again. Maybe you just forgive him and you don't ask for the money. You let sleeping dogs lie. You don't dig up the past and speak about things that should be forgotten.
Something which is definitely true of Coco is this saying, his bark is worse than his bite. Coco can barely bite. He's only got a few teeth left. He doesn't have that many. So he might bark, "Roof, roof," but don't be afraid. He's not going to do much about it. So many dogs, particularly yappy dogs, will bark a lot to try and scare you, but they're not going to bite you probably. Or if they do, the bite's not going to hurt. So obviously it's metaphorical for people who say, "Oh, I am going to get you into trouble. I'm going to hit you. You better watch out." But they're not going to do much about it. They're not going to put those threats into action.
It's often used to speak about your boss, isn't it? Or maybe your teacher. You could look at Reza and one student would say to another student, "Oh, that Reza, he looks very serious. He looks very strict." And the other student says, "Oh, don't worry about Reza. His bark is worse than his bite. He's really very kind."
Another nice expression is to bark up the wrong tree. So can you imagine a dog at the bottom of a tree and it's looking up the tree, barking? Maybe there's a cat up there and the dog knows the cat's up there and it's barking. But if you're barking up the wrong tree, imagine there is no cat in that tree. The cat's in a different tree, but the dog doesn't know that. Okay, so the metaphorical meaning of to bark up the wrong tree is that you're excited, you're worried, you're interested in something which is going nowhere. You should be interested in something else or someone else. Your interest is misplaced. You're barking up the wrong tree.
Reza, if you think you're going to take home the rest of this chocolate cake to eat by yourself, you're barking up the wrong tree.
I thought he was, but no, he's not going to let me.
If you eat too much chocolate cake the next day, or if you drink too much beer, you might have a hangover. You can say you're as sick as a dog if you eat too much of something or you drink too much of something. You feel very, very sick. You're as sick as a dog.
Now, Craig, what would you understand by the expression a dog fight?
Well, it could be the literal meaning of two dogs fighting. Unfortunately, in some parts of the world, they still have dog fights and bet on them. So they fight for money, which makes me very, very sad. But there's another meaning, isn't there, connected to aeroplanes?
Yes, when I was a kid growing up, I loved war films, I must admit. I don't now so much, but I did as a kid, and particularly the dog fights. That is an aerial combat between two fighter planes. So you know those old black and white films, there's one side against the other, one tries to get behind the other and the machine gun is cracking off and oh, he's got me in the shoulder, but I gotta carry on, I can't let the side down. That's a dog fight because they're like dogs, they're very tenacious, they won't give up. So a dog fight is actually two fighter pilots fighting each other in the air.
When you get old, Reza...
You mean now? In other words,
you might, like me, feel that it's difficult to learn new things, that when you were younger, your mind was more elastic, it was more absorbent, you could easily learn things. And when you get older, you think, no, I don't really want to learn anything new. I don't want anything to change. You can say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So if you're getting old and you don't want to learn anything new, no, don't tell me this, I'm not interested. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
One last idiom which I like is, it's a dog's life. So people say that about their own life or life in general to mean it's hard. Because let's face it, let's be honest, dogs do go through a lot of unpleasant things. A lot of dogs get abandoned, they get mistreated. So when people say, it's a dog's life, they're saying, life's hard, isn't it?
Not if you're Coco.
Speaking of which, shall we ask him about his life?
Yes, come on, Coco, wake up. I don't think we should let sleeping dogs lie. I think we should get Coco on the microphone.
How will we do this? Because he doesn't speak much in public.
Well, maybe he could whisper into your ear because you understand him more than I do, and then you could translate what Coco's saying from doggy language into English. How about that?
Okay, I'll be his interpreter. Yeah.
So, hello, Coco. How are you? Thank you for coming on the podcast. Or should I say Coquito, or Coquinho, or Esquielita? How do you say that?
Rosquillita.
Rosquillita, Roski, or Lord Roskins, all of which are your pseudonyms, I believe. Is that true?
Let me just ask Coco. Okay, he says, just Coco is fine. You can call him just Coco. He says, I'm over 16 years old. That's equivalent to nearly 100 years in human terms.
Well, that's surprising because you do look very young, Coco. I'm very surprised by your shiny coat and your lovely pink tongue and your wet nose. So you don't look your age. I think the listeners, Coco, will be interested to know what a typical day is like for you.
Let me just ask him. So he said, I get up around 9 o'clock and I want my cooked breakfast as soon as possible. My first walk is around 9:30. When I get back, I have my first nap of the day. Lunch is at around 4 o'clock.
What's a nap?
What's a nap? A nap is a siesta, a little sleep. Oh, I like my naps. So after lunch at 4 o'clock, that's followed by more walkies. Then another kip. A kip is a nap. K-I-P, kip, nap. Sometimes I play with Daddy. That's me, by the way, his interpreter. Sometimes I play with Daddy in the early evening. The running after the cuddly toy game. Cuddly toy, something to play with. You say in Spanish, don't you, un peluche? A cuddly toy. So he runs after that. Supper, the evening meal. Supper's between 8 and 10 o'clock. It varies.
Oh, you eat at Spanish times, Coco.
Oh, yes. But he says, I do get a bit annoyed at Daddy at times when he gets home late to make my supper and I'm starving.
What does starving mean?
Starving is very hungry. Straight after supper, it's time for the last walk of the day and then beddy buys. Beddy buys, a nice way of saying to dogs or to children, time for bed.
Well, that sounds like a very interesting day and very relaxing day. What's your favourite food, Coco?
Okay, right. Okay, I'll interpret that. He says, well, I particularly like lamb's liver, though I love all meat.
Can you remind listeners what liver is?
Liver is hígado. Yeah, he loves lamb's liver, but all meat in general. What's that? Okay, he says, I enjoy most fish and seafood too, but I can't stand defrosted prawns. They must be fresh. Otherwise, I spit them out. So he doesn't like defrosted prawns. Defrosted means they've been frozen and now they're not frozen. And prawns are gambas. Oh, no. For Coco, they got to be fresh.
So he spits them out. He throws them out of his mouth.
Exactly.
Okay.
He knows immediately if they're fresh or not. I'm not joking. This is true. I've seen it many times. He continues, I'm also fond of cheese, pumpkin,
Calabaza.
couscous, cucumber. I know, surprising, isn't it? Cucumber, which is pepino, and pomegranate, granada. Though I love blue fish, he says, such as salmon, it seems to disagree with me. It disagrees with him means that it gives him an upset, a bad stomach.
So, 1 second, Coco. You eat all this lovely food. Don't you ever eat dog food, like tinned dog food or things like that?
Tinned dog food or feed? Pienso? No way, Jose. That stuff's for silly young mutts. I have a delicate tummy and only eat freshly cooked meat or fish with vegetables. Freshly cooked.
And what about treats? What do you like for treats?
Treats? Let me ask him. Oh, yes, sirree, he says. Yes, sirree, now you're talking my language. I demand one after every meal and every walk.
So you're treated very well.
Indeed he is, believe me.
And does Daddy know about your likes and your dislikes? Does he know what to give you?
Oof, I'm going to ask him. Let's see what he says.
This will be interesting.
Okay, let me report back what he says. He says, well, that's Daddy, he's often a bit slow to catch on. To catch on is to understand what's happening. But I try to communicate my pleasure by wagging my tail. And when I'm not pleased, I growl quietly. I only occasionally bark. I'm not a yappy dog.
And that's true because I've seen Coco on various occasions and I don't think I've heard him yap, so I agree with that. Now, Coco, we mentioned different kinds of working dogs earlier. Now, at your age, obviously, around 100 in human years, you're now retired and living a life of leisure. But have you worked much throughout your life?
Oh, that's a good question, Craig. I'd like to see his answer to this. Let me ask him. Yeah, I'll tell you his answer. He says, I'm just the interpreter. He says, well, kind of. You see, I'm a lap dog. My job is to sit comfortably on people's laps. Their laps on top of their legs. And let them stroke me while I perhaps have a snooze, something like that.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Coco, for taking the time to answer our questions. And thank you for interpreting Reza.
No problem. And Coco, what do you say? Oh, he says, the pleasure's mine.
Thank you very much. And now it's your turn to practice your English. Do you have a dog? Are you a dog lover? Tell us about your dog or any pet that you might have. And thanks again to Marcella for giving us the idea to interview Coco. You can send your voice messages to us using the SpeakPipe app, and you can find that at SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Remember, you can see all the links and the transcript of Coco's interview in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/365. Reza, how can people contact us by email?
If you prefer to write a comment or question, you could send it to craig@inglespodcast.com or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
If you're interested in a paid course to help you improve your English, you can find those at La Mansión del Inglés online store. The courses are only for humans, unfortunately, not for dogs. But if you are a human, go to store.mansioningles.net.
As ever, we'd like to thank all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast on Patreon. You can join the Patreon program if you like for as little as about $1.20 per month, and that 20 cents is to include VAT. And if you do that, you get instant access to recent transcriptions. If you're interested, go to www.patreon, that's patreon.com/Inglespodcast.
We really appreciate all of your support on Patreon. Unfortunately, we can't mention everybody's name here. There just isn't enough time, but we do want to say thank you to the most recent Patreon supporters who have joined us this month, and they are Jefferson Zambrano, Juan Antonio Solera Villena, Cesar Lorenzo, Ginés Rodriguez, and Andreas and Jessica. Thank you very much to all of you. What's next week, Reza?
In next week's episode, a very important question. Are you satisfied with your English level?
Well, are you? We'll find out next week, and we'll also answer some more of your comments and questions. Thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, it's goodbye from Reza.
Bye-bye from Coco. And bye-bye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.